I was folding his laundry, the same laundry I had folded for 18 years, when my husband walked into the bedroom, sat down on the edge of the bed, and said 4 words that ended my marriage. I want a divorce. No fight. No warning. No affair I had caught him in. Just 4 words, delivered like he was telling me what he wanted for dinner. I want you to remember this moment, because by the end of this video, you are going to watch that same man, the one who threw away 18 years for a woman 12 years younger than me, sit outside my house in the rain, begging me to let him back in. This is a true story about heartbreak, betrayal, reinvention, and the kind of karma that doesn't need anyone's help to arrive right on time. If you've ever been left, replaced, or made to feel like you weren't enough, stay with me. Because what happened to me might just be the story you needed to hear today. My name is Sarah. And this is what happened when my husband left me for someone younger. I met Daniel when I was 24 years old. He was ambitious, funny, the kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony in our backyard, surrounded by string lights and people who loved us. For the first 10 years, I believed we had something real. We built a life together, a house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, a small consulting business that I ran from our home office, while Daniel climbed the ladder at his engineering firm. I gave up a promotion of my own once, early on, because his job required us to relocate, and I told myself that's what partnership means. You sacrifice. You compromise. You build something together. I packed his lunches. I remembered his mother's birthday every single year, even after she stopped remembering mine. I sat in the bleachers at his company softball games, cheering for a team I didn't care about because he was on it and I loved him. Somewhere around year 15, something shifted. I felt it before I could name it, the way he'd glance at his phone and angle it away from me. The way working late became working late for nights a week instead of one. The way he stopped asking how my day was. I told myself it was stress. A midlife rut. Every marriage goes through seasons, right? I read the books. I planned date nights he canceled. I asked if we were okay, and every single time, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Of course we're okay. You're overthinking this." I believed him because I wanted to. Because 18 years is a long time to build a life with someone, and it is terrifying to imagine that life cracking open. I didn't know it yet, but the crack had already happened. I just hadn't been shown where. The day he asked for a divorce started like any other Tuesday. I'd made coffee. He'd left for work. I had a client call at 10, and I remember feeling, for the first time in weeks, genuinely light. Hopeful even. He came home early. That should have been my first clue. Daniel never came home early. He didn't take off his coat. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom while I folded laundry on the bed, and he said it like he'd rehearsed it in the car. I want a divorce. I laughed. I actually laughed because my brain refused to process it as real. That's not funny, I said. I'm not joking, Sarah. I haven't been happy for a long time. I asked him why. I asked him what I had done, what I could fix, whether we could see someone together. And that's when he said the sentence that still echoes in my head to this day. It's not about what you did. I found someone who makes me feel young again. Her name was Ashley, 29 years old, a junior associate at his firm, 12 years younger than me, with the kind of Instagram feed full of brunches and gym selfies that made my stomach turn when I finally allowed myself to look. He didn't cry when he told me. He didn't apologize. He packed a bag that same night and left it to me to explain to our 2 children, 17 and 20, why their father wasn't coming home. I remember standing in my kitchen at 11 o'clock that night, completely alone, thinking, 18 years and this is how it ends. Not with a fight. Not with a scandal I could point to and say, that's when it broke. Just a quiet, cowardly exit, dressed up as honesty. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I lost 15 pounds without trying. I couldn't sleep in our bed, his side still smelled like him, so I moved to the guest room for months. My daughter, Emma, would find me crying in the laundry room at 2 a.m. and just sit down next to me without saying anything, because there was nothing to say. My son, Jake, stopped talking to his father almost entirely. He was 20, old enough to be furious, and he was. Daniel married Ashley 8 months after our divorce was finalized. 8 months. I found out through a mutual friend who thought I deserved to know before I saw it on Facebook. They had a destination wedding. Turks and Caicos. I saw the photos because some so-called friend, actually sent them to me. I remember sitting on my bathroom floor with my phone in my hand, looking at photos of my husband of 18 years in a white linen suit, smiling at a woman young enough to have been one of his interns, and thinking, what was wrong with me? That question haunted me for months. What was wrong with me? What could I have done differently? What did she have that I didn't? It took me a long time, longer than I'm proud of, to understand that the question itself was the trap. There was nothing wrong with me. There was something broken in him, and he had chosen the easiest, most cliché way to run from it, finding someone new to admire him before he had to sit with who he actually was. But I didn't know that yet. Not really. Not in my bones. In those early months, I just knew the loneliness. The empty side of the bed. The Target run where I broke down crying in the cereal aisle because he used to make our kids pancakes on Saturdays, and now Saturdays just stretched out empty in front of me. Here is what nobody tells you about hitting rock bottom. Eventually, the only direction left is up. It started small. A friend, Denise, dragged me to a yoga class I didn't want to go to. I hated it. I went back the next week anyway, because it was something to do that wasn't crying. I started walking every morning before work. Just walking. No destination, no goal, just movement, because sitting still meant thinking, and thinking meant spiraling. 6 months after the divorce, I finally called a therapist. I want to say this clearly, because I think it matters. Therapy did not fix me. It gave me a place to put down 18 years of weight I didn't know I'd been carrying long before Daniel ever said the word divorce. My therapist asked me a question in our 3rd session that changed something in me. She said, Sarah, when's the last time you did something just because you wanted to? I couldn't answer her. I genuinely could not remember. So I started. Small things first. I repainted the kitchen a color Daniel always vetoed, a deep, warm terracotta. I signed up for a pottery class. I took Emma on a trip to the coast, just the 2 of us, something we'd never done because Daniel's schedule always came first. And then something bigger. My little consulting business, the one I'd scaled back for years to accommodate his career, I poured myself into it. I picked up 2 new clients. Then 4. Within a year, I had replaced the income I'd lost in the divorce settlement, and then some. I'm not going to pretend it was a straight line. There were nights I still cried. There were moments I saw a couple our age laughing together in a restaurant and had to excuse myself to the bathroom. Healing isn't a montage. It's messy and slow, and it sneaks up on you in the good moments as much as the bad ones. But somewhere around month 14, I noticed something. I woke up one Saturday morning, made myself coffee, sat on my porch, and realized I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Meanwhile, Daniel's fairy tale wasn't quite the fairy tale he'd traded me in for. I heard bits and pieces through mutual friends, the way you always do in small communities. Ashley wanted children right away. She was 29, after all, and Daniel was 52. He'd already raised 2 kids. He wasn't eager to start over with diapers and 2 a.m. feedings. Then there was the money. Ashley, I heard, had expensive taste, the kind of lifestyle a junior associate's boyfriend turned husband was expected to fund. Trips. Handbags. A car upgrade less than a year into the marriage. And apparently, the excitement of being the exciting new woman faded fast once the routine of actual marriage set in. Turns out being someone's midlife crisis is not the same as being someone's partner. About a year and a half after our divorce, Jake, my son, got a call from his father. Daniel wanted to see him. Jake, to his credit, was hesitant, but he agreed, mostly out of curiosity. He came back and told me something I'll never forget. Mom, he looks old. Tired. He barely mentioned Ashley the whole time. He kept asking about you instead. I didn't feel triumphant hearing that. I felt something quieter, a kind of confirmation that I already knew, deep down, but needed to hear out loud. He hadn't found something better. He'd found something different, and different had turned out to be a lot harder than he expected. Then, almost 2 years after he'd walked into our bedroom and said those 4 words, Daniel showed up at my house. It was raining. I remember that specifically because it felt almost too on the nose, like something out of a movie. I opened the door and there he was, soaked, older looking than I remembered, standing on the porch I had repainted without him. "Sarah," he said, "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I think about you every day. I think about us every day. Ashley and it's not working. I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any chance?" I let him finish. "I want you to know that." I didn't slam the door. I stood there in the doorway of the home I had rebuilt myself, brick by brick, and I listened to every word. And then I said something I never thought I'd have the strength to say 2 years earlier, crying on my bathroom floor over wedding photos from Turks and Caicos. "Daniel, I hope you find peace. I really do. But I'm not who I was when you left. I built something new, and I'm not tearing it down for someone who only wants me back because his second choice didn't work out the way he planned." I closed the door. Gently. Not out of anger, out of certainty. It's been 3 years now since that Tuesday laundry folding conversation that changed my life. My consulting business has tripled in size. I hired my first employee last spring. Emma graduated college and moved into her first apartment, and I helped her paint it, the same terracotta color from my kitchen, because apparently it runs in the family now. Jake still doesn't have much of a relationship with his father, and that's his choice to make, not mine. I've never pushed him one way or the other. As for me, I started dating again about 18 months ago, slowly, carefully, on my own terms. Nobody who makes me shrink myself to fit into his life. Nobody I have to convince of my worth. I heard, through the same reliable grapevine, that Daniel and Ashley finally divorced about 8 months after he showed up on my porch. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not satisfaction, not sadness. Just nothing, which, honestly, might be the most healed I've ever felt about any of it. Because here's what I learned, and it's the reason I'm telling you this story today. The version of me who believed she wasn't enough because a man chose someone younger, she doesn't exist anymore. She was replaced, not by Ashley, but by a woman who rebuilt her entire life out of the wreckage he left behind, and built it better than it ever was before. If you are going through something like this right now, if someone made you feel replaceable, disposable, not enough, I need you to hear this. Their choice was never a verdict on your worth. It was a reflection of their own emptiness, dressed up as an upgrade. Give yourself the time. Give yourself the grace. And one day, you'll look back at the person who broke you, and you'll feel nothing but quiet, peaceful indifference, because you'll be too busy living a life you actually love. If this story moved you, if any part of it felt like your own story looking back at you, let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and this community means more to me than you know. If you believe that people who walk away from real love to chase something younger, shinier, or newer usually end up regretting it, smash that like button right now. And if you want to hear more real stories like this one, stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and the incredible comeback that follows, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week's story might just be the one that changes how you see your own life. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. And remember, you are never, ever too old, too late, or too broken to build a life that's better than the one someone else threw away. See you in the next story.